David was a security guard at a large government building in a busy city. Every day he wore his uniform and stood quietly at the entrance, watching the people who came and went. David was not a man who liked to speak much. He believed in doing his job well and with respect. He was calm, kind, and always polite to everyone he met. Though his job seemed simple, David took it seriously. He knew the building was important, and he wanted to make sure everything was safe. David's days were often quiet and routine. He greeted people with a small nod or a soft good morning. Most people barely noticed him, but David didn't mind. He liked his quiet life. He lived alone in a small apartment nearby. He spent his free time reading books about history and people who had made a difference in the world. David admired those who had courage and strength, even if they did not seek attention. One chilly morning, something different happened. A special visitor was coming to the building. David heard about it from his coworkers. The visitor was Mr. James, a war veteran who had served his country many years ago. Mr. James was known for his bravery and the many medals he had earned in battle. Today he was coming for an important ceremony where the country would honor his service. David had never met Mr. James before, but he felt a deep respect for him even without knowing the man personally. When Mr. James arrived, David watched carefully. The veteran walked slowly, but with pride. His uniform was old but clean, and his medals shined softly in the morning light. David noticed the way Mr. James held himself, calm and strong, but also humble. It was clear that he had lived through many hard times. As Mr. James moved through the entrance, David felt a strange feeling in his chest. He thought about the war and the many soldiers who had fought far from home. He remembered the stories he had read and heard about men who had risked everything to protect their country and their families. David thought about how those men might have felt, how scared and tired they must have been. Suddenly, David felt that he wanted to do something special to show respect to Mr. James. The building was busy, but David made sure everything was ready. For the ceremony, he arranged the entrance, made sure the flag was standing tall, and checked that the area was clean and neat. Even small things mattered to him. He knew that today was not just another day. It was a day to honor courage, sacrifice, as an honor. As the time for the ceremony came closer, David watched people gather around. Some wore suits, some wore uniforms, and many had smiles and warm words for Mr. James. David stood quietly to the side, feeling a mix of pride and nervousness. He thought about how important this moment was for the veteran and for the country, even though David did not speak much. He listened carefully to the conversations. People talked about the war, about how hard it was, and about how lucky they were to have heroes like Mr. James. David remembered his own grandfather's stories from the war. He realized that the sacrifices of veterans were often quiet and unseen, just like his own work as a guard. Mr. James walked slowly towards the stage where the ceremony would happen. David saw the veteran's eyes looking around the room. There was a softness there, a mix of memories and emotions. David felt a strong urge inside him to say something, to thank the man for what he had done. But David was shy and unsure. How could a simple guard express such deep feelings? As the ceremony started, David stayed alert. He noticed the applause and the kind words from the speakers. The whole room was filled with respect, yet David thought that maybe words alone were not enough. He wanted to do something more, something real and meaningful. He thought about how he could show Mr. James that his service was seen and valued. For now, David stayed quiet and watched. But deep inside, something was growing, a feeling of admiration and gratitude that would soon lead to a powerful moment. This quiet security guard was about to do something that would stop everyone in their tracks and remind them of the true meaning of honor. David's story is a reminder that even the smallest people, the quietest voices, can hold great respect and strength. Sometimes the greatest impact comes from simple acts of kindness and courage. And in this busy world, a humble guard was about to show everyone the power of a heartfelt tribute. David felt the weight of the moment growing inside him. He'd watched Mr. James walk slowly through the building, proud yet humble. The veteran's story was in his mind, and David knew he wanted to do something special, something real that could honor Mr. James in a way words alone might not. David was not a man who spoke much, Most days he quietly did his job, watching the people come and go. But now his heart told him to find a way to express his respect. He thought about the veterans he had read about in books, men who had risked everything for their country. He thought about how they had faced danger, pain, and loss. David understood that these men did not always get the thanks they deserved. That afternoon, after the ceremony, David took a quiet moment for himself in a small room behind the main hall. He sat down and thought carefully. How could he show Mr. James that his bravery mattered? David knew that a simple handshake might not be enough. He wanted to find a way to speak from his heart. He wanted to say something that would make Mr. James and everyone else feel the true power of gratitude. David began to plan. He remembered the respectful salutes he had seen soldiers give. It was a simple gesture, but full of meaning. Maybe if he combined a salute with a few sincere words, he could create a tribute that no one would forget. He practiced quietly, speaking soft words of thanks to himself. His voice was steady, but full of feeling. He thought about what he wanted to say. He did not want to use big or fancy words. Instead, he wanted his words to be clear and honest. Wanted to say thank you for the courage, the sacrifice, and the strength. He wanted to remind everyone that the peace they enjoyed was because of men like Mr. James. David also thought about the families who had lost loved ones in the war. Their pain was real, and David wanted his tribute to honor them as well. As David practiced, he felt his confidence grow. Though he was still quiet by nature, he knew this moment was bigger than himself. It was about respect and honor. It was about showing that even someone in a small role could make a difference. David decided he would not be afraid to speak up. The next day, David found a moment to talk with some of his coworkers. He told them quietly about his plan to give a tribute to Mr. James. At first, some were surprised. They had never heard David speak like this before. But they quickly saw the kindness in his eyes and the truth in his words. They encouraged him, telling him it was a brave and good idea. David also talked with the event organizer. He asked if he could have a few moments during the ceremony to say something. The organizer smiled and agreed, seeing the respect behind David's request. They helped David prepare a small space where he could stand and be heard clearly. As the day of the tribute came closer, David felt a mix of nervousness and excitement. He wondered how Mr. James would feel when he heard the words. Would the veteran understand that this was a real and heartfelt thanks? Would the others in the room feel the respect that David wanted to share? David's mind kept returning to the faces of the veterans he had read about, the ones who had come before Mr. James. He thought about the long nights, the hard battles, and the hope for a better future. David wanted to give voice to those silent stories to remind everyone that the price of freedom was paid by brave men and women. On the morning of the tribute, David woke early. He dressed carefully in his uniform, making sure everything was neat and clean. He looked at himself in the mirror and took a deep breath. Today he would speak not just for himself, but for all those who had served. He would be their voice for a moment. As people gathered in the room, David waited quietly. He saw Mr. James sitting with other guests, his hands resting calmly in his lap. David felt a deep respect as he looked at the veteran's face, a face that had seen much but carried itself with grace. When the time came, David stepped forward. His heart beat faster, but his voice was strong and clear. He began to speak, his words simple but full of meaning. He thanked Mr. James for his service, for his courage, and for the sacrifices he had made. David spoke about the peace that Mr. James and others had fought for, about the hope they had given to future generations. David's tribute was quiet but powerful. He did not need loud words or grand gestures. His sincerity shone through every sentence. The room grew silent as people listened, moved by the guard's honest words. David saw some eyes fill with tears and others nod in agreement. The moment was shared by everyone, a moment of respect and deep gratitude. After David finished, Mr. James stood slowly. With a gentle smile, the veteran reached out and shook David's hand. He thanked the guard for the beautiful tribute and said it was a moment he would never forget. The two men shared a quiet but strong connection, a bond made through respect and honor. David's simple tribute reminded everyone in the room that true thanks come from the heart. It showed that no matter who you are, you can make a difference. By speaking honestly and with kindness. And for David, the guard who once stood quietly at the entrance, this was the beginning of something bigger, a chance to honor not just one veteran, but all who had served. David's tribute became the heart of the day's ceremony. As he finished speaking, the room held a deep silence that seemed to last for a long moment. Everyone was moved. His simple words, spoken with honesty and respect, had touched something. Inside all who listened, the people in the room were not just guests. Many were veterans themselves, families of soldiers and government workers. They felt the power of David's tribute. It reminded them of the true meaning of honor and sacrifice. Some eyes grew moist with tears, while others nodded quietly, feeling the truth in what David said. It was as if the whole room had come closer together. United by respect for those who had served, David stood quietly, feeling a mix of relief and pride. He had not expected such a strong reaction. He'd only wanted to show his respect and gratitude. But now he saw that his small act had made a big difference. People approached him after the ceremony to shake his hand, to thank him for speaking so sincerely. Some said his words had reminded them of their own families and friends who had served. Others said it was the most touching moment of the day. Mr. James, the veteran who had inspired the tribute, was deeply moved. He came to David and spoke softly. "Thank you," he said. "You have reminded me why I did what I did. Sometimes we veterans forget how much people care. Your words gave me strength today." Mr. James's eyes were full of gratitude and emotion. For David, hearing this was one of the greatest honors of his life. The story of David's tribute soon spread beyond the ceremony. Staff at the building told their friends and family about the quiet guard, who had stopped everyone in their tracks with his heartfelt words. Some local news outlets heard about it and wanted to share the story, too. They saw how a simple act of respect could inspire many people and bring attention to the sacrifices of veterans. David, who had once been just a silent guard, found himself in the spotlight. But he did not change. He remained humble and quiet. He said little about himself, but always spoke about the importance of remembering veterans and showing them respect. For David, the tribute was not about fame or recognition. It was about doing what was right, honoring those who had given. So much the building's management saw the value of David's tribute. They decided to hold more events like the ceremony to honor veterans and educate people about their service. David was asked to help plan these events. Though shy, he agreed because he believed in the cause. He wanted to make sure that the respect shown that day would continue and grow. David also began to receive letters and messages from veterans and their families. Many thanked him for reminding the world about the sacrifices that sometimes go unnoticed. Some shared their own stories, and David listened with care. These connections helped him feel part of a larger community, one that valued honor, courage, and kindness. The impact of David's tribute was clear. It showed that respect could come from anyone, regardless of their role or position. A quiet guard had spoken for many, and his words had been heard loud and clear. The ceremony had become more than a single event. It had become a symbol of gratitude and unity for Mr. James. The tribute was a moment of healing. He said it helped him feel proud of his service again and reminded him that he was not forgotten. The gratitude shown by David and the others brought comfort to his heart. It was a reminder that even after the battles and the years, respect and honor remained. David's tribute also inspired others to think about their own ways to show thanks. Some started volunteering at veteran centers. Others began learning more about history and the sacrifices of soldiers. The story reminded everyone that honoring veterans is a shared responsibility and a way to keep peace alive. As the days passed, David continued his work at the building, but now he carried a new sense of purpose. He knew that even small actions could have great meaning. He felt proud to have used his voice, quiet though it was, to bring attention to something so important. David's story is a powerful example of how respect and kindness can change lives. It reminds us that honoring those who serve is not just about ceremonies or medals. It is about recognizing their courage every day. Through his tribute, David showed that anyone, no matter how humble, can make a difference. After the ceremony, the impact of David's tribute continued to grow. Many people spoke about how deeply they had been moved by the simple yet powerful words of a quiet security guard. His tribute was not only a message of thanks to one veteran, Mr. James, but it became a symbol for all veterans who had served with courage and sacrifice. The management of the government building saw this as an important moment. They realized that the respect shown during the ceremony should be part of everyday life, not just special occasions. So they began planning new ways to honor veterans regularly. They invited David to be part of these plans because they knew how much he cared and how his words had touched so many hearts. David was hesitant at first. He was a quiet man who had never sought attention. But he agreed because he believed in the cause. He wanted to make sure that veterans like Mr. James were remembered and respected. Together with the organizers, David helped create events where veterans could share their stories, and people could learn about the real sacrifices made for their freedom. The first of these events was a small gathering, where veterans were invited to the building to speak and meet others. David helped welcome the guests and made sure everything ran smoothly. It was a warm and respectful day. Many veterans shared stories of their lives, both hard and hopeful. The visitors appreciated the chance to connect with others who understood their experiences. David found himself listening closely to these stories. Each one was different, but all shared a common thread of bravery, struggle, and hope. Hearing these voices made David feel even more connected to the veterans. He understood their pain and pride in a way he never had before. This deepened his respect and inspired him to do more. Word about these events spread quickly. More veterans wanted to join, and more people wanted to learn. David's tribute had started a small movement of respect and understanding. Schools and community groups asked to visit and hear the stories of veterans. David often spoke at these gatherings, sharing his own thoughts about respect and kindness. The connection between David and Mr. James grew stronger too. They often met after the events, talking quietly about life, service, and hope. Mr. James said that David's tribute had brought him peace and a renewed sense of purpose. He felt proud to be remembered not just as a soldier, but as a person who had made a difference. David's own life began to change as well. He found joy in helping others learn about veterans and their sacrifices. He started volunteering at a local veterans center on his days off. There he helped organize programs and listened to more stories of courage. These experiences made him feel part of a larger community, one built on respect and kindness. One day, the building held a special ceremony to dedicate a small memorial to honor all veterans. David was asked to say a few words. Standing before a crowd, he spoke humbly but clearly. He thanked the veterans for their service and reminded everyone that respect is the greatest gift we can give. The memorial became a place where people could come to remember and reflect. David's tribute had started as a simple idea way to say thank you, but it grew into something much bigger. It became a reminder to a busy world that the sacrifices of veterans must never be forgotten. It showed how one person's respect and kindness can inspire many and create lasting change. The lessons from David's story are clear. Respect is powerful, and gratitude can heal. Even the quietest people have the ability to make a difference when they speak from the heart. David's tribute stopped everyone in their tracks because it came from a place of true honor and love. As the years passed, David continued his work as a security guard, but now with a new mission. He was no longer just a silent watcher at the door. He was a voice for veterans and a reminder of the importance of kindness. Through his actions, David showed that respect is not just a word, it is a way of life. His story inspired others to look closer at the people around them and to appreciate the quiet heroes in their own lives. It showed that sometimes a single moment of courage and respect can change many lives. David's tribute became a beacon of hope, honor, and unity for all who heard it. David's story did not end with the memorial ceremony or the small gatherings. It became something bigger, a movement of respect and kindness that touched many lives beyond the walls of the government building. David, the quiet security guard, who once stood at the entrance unnoticed, had found a powerful way to honor those who had given so much for their country. After the memorial was built, its people started visiting it often. Veterans, their families, and even strangers would come to the peaceful spot to remember the sacrifices made by soldiers. It became a place for reflection and gratitude. David would sometimes join these visitors, standing quietly by the memorial. Feeling the deep connection to all the stories he had heard and the people he had met, David also helped start a support group for veterans and their families. This group met regularly to share stories, offer help, and build friendships. Many veterans found comfort in talking to others who understood their experiences. Families felt less alone because they had a place to go, where their loved ones were honored and supported. This support group grew quickly. More veterans and family members joined, and community leaders began to take notice. They offered resources and helped fund programs to assist veterans with health care, job training, and housing. David's simple act of respect had led to real help for many people who needed it. David himself became a quiet leader in the group. He never sought the spotlight, but his kindness and dedication made him respected by all. He listened more than he spoke, but when he did speak, his words carried the same power and honesty that had touched everyone at the ceremony. David showed that leadership comes from the heart and a deep sense of care. The story of David's tribute was shared in newspapers, on the radio, and even on television. People across the city and beyond heard about the guard who had stopped a ceremony with his powerful words. Many were inspired to think about how they could show respect to veterans in their own communities. Some started similar programs, and others simply made a promise to thank a veteran when they met one. Schools began teaching students about the importance of veterans and respect. Teachers invited veterans to speak and share their stories. Students made cards and small gifts to give to veterans at local hospitals and homes. David was proud to see that respect and gratitude were being passed on to a new generation. Through all of this, David remained humble. He knew that the real heroes were the veterans themselves and the families who supported them. His tribute was just one small way to honor them, but it had started a wave of kindness that continued to grow. David's life also changed in quiet ways. He felt more connected to his community and more confident in his own voice. He knew that even someone like him, a simple guard, could make a difference. This gave him hope and strength to keep working for what he believed was right. The lesson of David's story is simple but powerful. Respect and gratitude are not just words to say on special days. They are actions to live by every day. By honoring those who serve, we keep alive the values of courage, sacrifice, and love for our country and each other. David's tribute showed that no matter who we are, we all have the power to make a positive change. Sometimes all it takes is a few honest words and a kind heart to stop everyone in their tracks and remind the world what really matters. And so, David's story lives on in the memories of veterans, in the hearts of those who hear it, and in the quiet strength of a humble guard who chose to speak with honor